Well, hi everyone. Welcome to Cannabis Technology. And with me today, I've got the CEO and founder of Grasshopper Kiosks, Martin Kaufman. How you doing today, Martin?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. Glad to have you. Well, I want to start right out, kind of beginning with your experience. You've got over a decade of it in the cannabis industry as co-founder of Bloom, which was a publicly traded dispensary chain. And then, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Is it 14? The National
14.
Premium?
Oh, you're talking about IVXX?
Yes.
It's intended to be 420 in Roman numerals.
Oh, I blew it there, showing my ignorance. Anyway, National Premium.
A comma and colon in between, but yeah, it's a large cannabis brand in California.
Okay.
With some promotion in Nevada as well, I believe.
Right, because it's a national premium brand. I'm curious, yes, Martin, what compelled you to create the Grasshopper Kiosk?
It's a good question. Well, long and short, we sold basically Bloom and Ivex and that portfolio of companies when we merged it with TerraTech, and I sort of phased out of the company and wanted to stay in the industry, which is an industry I love and have been in for a long time. And I really have always focused kind of on business development, and we might call R&D. So Ron, my partner with Grasshopper, I had known him for years just because he provided a lot of hardware services, in and around the cannabis industry. And we'd always talked about doing some work together, and just neither of us really had the bandwidth for it. So after, I phased out of working at Bloom and for TerraTech, he and I kept in close contact, and we saw a niche for, I guess, what I would call an automated, retail solution in the cannabis space, and everything kind of started falling into place. We both kind of had a pretty deep roster of contacts and relationships and ideas. He from the kiosk industry primarily, and myself from the cannabis industry, so it worked well together.
Okay. So having said that, let's start with an overview of Grasshopper's product suite of ADA-compliant automated kiosks and that teller assist technology.
Absolutely. So kind of our flagship product was the Grasshopper 3600. That is kind of a large refrigerator-sized, you can think of it as armored, it's hermetically sealed, it's climate controlled, it's got a large high-definition touchscreen display. And that holds up to 36 unique SKUs and hundreds of items of inventory. And it's got kind of our proprietary software system on it. So essentially, you can, garner information about products. You can view advertisement. You can build a shopping cart. Basically, it's it displays a live menu on the touchscreen, and it allows clients to kind of come up and find out information about products they might be interested, kind of set items aside for their shopping cart, continue to browse other products, adjust the quantities of items of inventory they may want, and then eventually they can check out using cash, debit, or credit, and they're able to, make this purchase at a remote kiosk, which is a good way to kind of shortcut a line if a dispensary is busy, or in some instances we have clients who kind of prefer working with the machine as opposed to interfacing with a human. For various reasons, we found that there's a decent amount of people out there that have, various anxiety disorders, and, unbeknownst to the rest of us, they just would prefer not having that face-to-face interaction for one reason or another. The kiosk itself can be fully customized, like both by us via tablet and by the dispensary, or sort of our client, I guess you'd say. So we can do combo deals. We can program, time of day discounting. You can shut down for various purposes. You can program, custom messages at the point of sale, coupons and token values. It's a pretty dynamic piece of equipment. We're pretty proud of it. It took us years to kind of get it to where it is now, and we're actually in the process of revamping our software altogether. And that's going to give us kind of a limitless ability to tweak it in any direction we see fit in a good way. I guess jumping to our next SKU would be, we have a Grasshopper 6000, which is a very similar device. It just holds up to 60 unique SKUs, although we've intended that to be configured not so much to have 60 unique items in it, but mainly because we can, damn near triple the amount of inventory it can hold. So it's intended to be more of a set it and forget it device that can only, that only need to be serviced, bi-weekly or something like that, or I guess bi-monthly is the term, sorry. That being said, in a high volume retail arena. Beyond that, we have our Grasshopper Locker, and that you can think of it very similarly to an Amazon locker, but just for the cannabis space. It you can log in from any device, whether it's a phone, tablet, home computer. We do actually use tablets in some of our locations as well. You can basically browse through a menu of products that the dispensary might have on their menu, pre-place an order, and then if it were in a dispensary, a client can now show up at the dispensary, punch in a code. They can already have made a payment from home or on their way, and or make payment at the dispensary in person. Obviously, they have to show their ID to enter the facility, and then just via geofencing from their smartphone or putting in their unique code, the locker system will just dispense their pre-ordered product. So it's just a way of kind of shortcutting the line, and you could get your order set yesterday and pick it up this morning, kind of thing. Additionally, we found it's a very valuable tool for retail inventory control, for back of the house operations on distribution companies and also some of the larger delivery companies in the compliance system. They can essentially use it for inventory management. So it's a very interesting tool for that. Like if you say you have an inventory clerk at a distribution or a delivery hub, they can kind of preset, they can kind of field orders from the internet and the call-ins, and then as they aggregate them for various, say, delivery drivers or delivery regions, they can place those, consolidated orders into one of the lockers. So then when the drivers show up, they can kind of fob into an access controlled area, which, is something that matters for compliance in California and a number of other states, pick up that batch of orders. This is all being logged and tracked via their unique code, via the inventory clerk's code, as well as what SKUs they've left the facility with, and then they can go about their delivery route. So it's an interesting tool as far as compliance goes.
Right. So the Grasshopper Locker, if I'm getting you right, is almost a device meant to supplement or work as an extension of a existing dispensary, in a sense. Would that be accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Interesting.
So again, it's a very powerful pre-order system. So an existing dispensary that's really busy. A lot of these stores, field pre-orders, and they're often just kind of stashed in bags, behind the counter, which may sound primitive,
right.
But I mean, it's a very effective way for some of these stores to manage this. Now that you've got this much more robust compliance regulatory system imposed on, California, for example, Nevada itself is also very strict. That way of doing business, regardless of how well it can work, is no longer legal. So this, on the other hand, could be placed in the dispensary floor, and staff can already have put these orders aside in the locker, and clients can just show up, confirm their ID, and pick up their order, assuming they paid for it, and be on their way. So it really streamlines that process.
I can see that. And did you touch on the Grasshopper 1000?
Yes. So that would be our wall mount system. So it's a much more compact system. It holds 10 unique SKUs. We can customize the graphic displays. It'll automatically notify anyone if there's sold out products. It's pretty robust. So it's vandalism proof, I guess you could say, even though it's intended to be in a secure dispensary. More to the point, we kind of designed it for brand partnerships. So we would, if a specific brand leader in the space wanted to have the device wrapped unique to their look, we would house only their products in it, and they would kind of, I guess, effectively showcase them on a dispensary floor, for example. So it's a really interesting tool for us to do brand partnerships with. It's sort of like we use it as a precursor to larger rollouts. Is kind of how we intend it.
Okay, gotcha. So how much collaboration, or what kind of collaboration, needed to take place between your team and all the industry associates, that was necessary to get this product to market? I would think it'd be quite a cross-section of talent and expertise.
I would certainly say years. Without question, we leveraged all of the context. I think, certainly on Ron's end in retail automation, and he came out of he's got 20 years in what I would call retail automation, robotics, and software, which is a deep industry in and of itself. And then on my end, maybe a good decade of working with dispensaries and just other large operators in the cannabis space. So it was really kind of bringing those two worlds together, which again, I mean, we talked about it for a year. We're about 2 years into actually like hands-on full-time, working in this company, and we're almost a year into actually having machines that we can actually physically tinker with that are the same machines you see today. So, and we're just finishing our kind of, I don't even know if I'd call it a 2.0. It's probably more like a 20.0 of our software update and revamp, which we're really excited about because it gives us kind of infinite control now finally. So yeah, absolutely, without question. I mean, we really pulled from decades of combined experience to, it's like this. To operate in cannabis is a little tricky, especially nowadays that it's no longer taboo and it's become regulated. So if you're kind of out there on the forefront and you are operating compliantly, I mean, you have to have your eyes wide open all the time. I mean, just 3 weeks ago, the regulatory framework for California, which is the sixth largest economy in the world, changed significantly. So you've got some massive cannabis companies. I mean, some of these guys are worth hundreds of millions of dollars probably as far as corporations go, and virtually overnight they've had to drastically shift how they do business. And everyone's competent, and there's some very badass operators out there, but it's constantly a challenge. So we've had to make sure we can kind of see ahead of that as best we're able to. Communicate with people constantly to stay ahead of like where they see pitfalls and problems that they would need something like a product like ours to keep ahead of. And then obviously we need to actually make those changes and kind of keep dynamic so we can stay compliant.
Sure. Here's a question that's I would think would be reasonably layered. How long did it take to develop, this proprietary controlled access system designed to interface with industry's leading compliant POS systems? Which systems are compatible? How did that all come together?
You're talking about the POS systems?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So I'd say we're about 2 years into what we currently have as a body of software. So, again, it's, the needs of our clients kind of has been constantly evolving as people just get new ideas, as new products come out. Almost, more importantly, what we just touched on is, as compliance continues to change and as, the rules continue to become amended, all for the better. It's like, you can think of it as just like a living body of legal work that just keeps shifting and improving and getting a little more focus as it kind of emerges from the ether of the black market. And
right.
We're just kind of having to have our eyes wide open and constantly, reprogramming, retweaking, readjusting. We'll have a SKU that's been selling through flawlessly for a year, and all of a sudden, the packaging rules change, and all of a sudden this basically the client whose product this is that goes in the kiosk all of a sudden has had to change their packaging, which requires kind of a hardware reshift on our end to make sure we can kind of adjust to fit sort of the new size and shape of the product, and almost more importantly, the way it dispenses has to be adjusted as well in many instances. So we've been fortunate to work with, some of the leading POS systems out there. We've been focusing on working with Trees, which is a very interesting startup out of the Bay Area, as well as a company called Baker. And then MJ Freeway has been kind of our main, the three of those have been kind of our main API focuses, but we've got on deck currently and in process kind of APIs to work with what I would call the other maybe 5 leading POS systems out there. And what kind of constantly complicates this is they themselves are also sort of moving the finish line as they go, as they incorporate new regulatory hurdles into their software. So it's been an interesting challenge, but it's one we are very fortunate to be up to task on, at least thus far.
Sure. And those are all very familiar themes with other interviews that I've done, goalposts constantly changing. I could see that being a challenge. Having said that, what are some of the other hardware design hurdles that you guys have to overcome? For example, I know your product is climate control. Was that a hurdle, and what are some other ones?
The climate controlled stuff fell into place pretty easily. The physical hardware we use is very uniquely sealed and thermally jacketed, so it ended up being pretty stable in there. We did have to tinker with it a little bit. Stuff that we're really proud of overcoming would be I'd say like our multi-dispense feature. So normally, if you think of just, we constantly get accused of just being a vending machine. And you go up to a normal vending machine and you type in, B63 and you get your bag of Cheetos and you go about your way. And, maybe you want to go back and get a Mountain Dew or something. Whereas with our system, you can kind of walk up to it. You can learn about the products. You can find detailed information about the products. You can kind of go back to other things you are viewing. You can hold, products in a shopping cart, change the quantities that you've ordered. What really I think makes us unique is the ability to build sort of a dynamic shopping cart. So eventually when I check out, I could have, one item or 17 items or, limitless items theoretically. And I make my payment and all my items come out in one simple order. And, I just throw them in my bag and I'm on my way. That was, that's something that sounds simple to, the average consumer. They take that for granted. That was a programming hurdle that was a lot more challenging than we thought it would be when we started. And I'd say other than that, probably the trickiest thing was just getting some of the industry compliant packaging to work with the physical hardware, right? And that had to then be interfaced with our custom software. So for example, normally, you think of a pack of gum, it's just a pack of gum. To manipulate spindles and sort of robotics to dispense a pack of gum isn't that challenging. But now if that pack of gum, because of changing, regulations in a state like California or Nevada, that has to be kind of in a secondary packaging that has to take a certain form shape. Everything internally has to be modified. And now you're dealing with potential congestion inside the machine and things that might get snagged. And, it again took us a good 100 days of hands-on deck tinkering. And we were able to, so far at least, short circuit any pitfalls along that route.
I'll bet. That's interesting you brought that up. That was a question I was going to ask later. Based off the research that I've done, is there a mental hurdle for people to try and get over, or at least you have to hold their hand to get over? Because, when you think of a kiosk or a vending machine, I think of a red box or a Coke machine, and, anyone can get access to that. But what's interesting about this device is that you're able to control and authorize the whole purchasing process. People have to create a profile. Not anyone can just show up. There's a lot of control in this smart technology. So it's a powerful tool that happens to be a kiosk. And I'm just wondering, when you're dealing with potential customers or you're in this market, is that something you have to walk people through all the time, that this is not a Coke machine?
To a large extent, we thought there would be a lot more hand-holding involved. We thought it would take a lot more education. And for whatever reason, I think, humans just have a proclivity to be drawn to technology. So when we first rolled out the kiosks a little over a year ago, we were expecting to walk people up to them. And very interestingly, customers that we thought wouldn't care at all about going to an automated kiosk, especially when there was a suite of, friendly, very knowledgeable staff members at the initial dispensary. And people would just kind of walk up to the thing and start tinkering with it. And it is pretty intuitive. It's not, to take a brain surgeon to figure out how to use it. It was designed to be very user-friendly. And then, when we here and there would kind of ask not so much interview, but just question clients about their experience with it. Some of them just would say they liked it because it was cool. They were interested. They liked technology, so they just wanted to tinker with it. Other people just really had no reason. They're just like, I don't know why I walked up to this as opposed to the sales counter. I don't even know. And it's sort of like we had to kind of create a new column in our checklist of people's answers. It was like, they just sort of seemed to be drawn to it. And very interestingly, people just kind of want to walk up to it and tinker with it. And initially we thought it would only really get traffic during very busy hours, which is partially what kind of inspired us building it.
That's really interesting. So what kind of cannabis merchandising is not very suitable for the kiosk, if any?
So a good question. So we have certainly had clients who, they think of sort of the more nuisance products that they might sell. You can think of there's medicated cotton candy, there's medicated bags of popcorn, there's medicated popsicles, you name it, someone thought of it, right? So for a lot of these clients, they were sort of thinking like, well, I don't really sell a lot of this stuff. I don't like dealing with it. I want to put this stuff in the kiosk just to so I can focus on my bread and butter, which is absolutely a respectable approach for their end. On our end, it's like, well, we just have to be frank with these people. It's like, look, you can fit, 20 bags of popcorn in here, at least, and that's going to take up, a quarter of your inventory, or you could fit, 400, vape pen cartridges. And from our data, I don't think you need us to tell you how much more in-demand vape pen cartridges or pre-rolls or prepackaged, eighths and grams are. And so, I don't want to say people try to put bananas in the thing, but they might as well. We've had some pretty interesting requests. And for the most part, having been out in the field for as long as we have now, we've really kind of honed in on the types of products, the types of brands that seem to sell best. Certainly, by region and by demographic, and it's to some extent it does depend on the retail store itself and kind of what sort of demographic they pull in. But it is an ever evolving, challenge.
Sure. Great segue to my next question. I know a lot of machines or vending machine businesses have, ROI models calculated based off demographics, so on and so forth. Do you guys have that ability to provide, any kind of ROI expectations or models?
Absolutely. So I would certainly, unfortunately, we don't have our sales team on the call, but they know those stats inside and out. But without question, we track all that data. We've had a single machine do over $7,400 in a single day, which may not sound like much to some people, but if you break down the fact that this thing is under 6 square feet or approximately 6 square feet, that's a phenomenal retail sales figure.
Sure.
We just recently did, I want to say, a kiosk that's placed at the Berkeley Patients Group in Berkeley, California. I believe they did well over 120 transactions out of a single kiosk in a single day, which having worked, retail myself as a dispensary operator, that's certainly more than any average or well above average counter person would ever be able to do. So it becomes a very effective, cost-effective tool to sort of expand your retail footprint, especially especially considering a lot of these dispensaries are very restricted by real estate, cost of real estate, how they're able to configure their stores. So it just, you have a lot of stores out there that are somewhat small and compact, but just by virtue of, real estate was limited or their floor plan is limited for various reasons. And so to allow them to sort of add, 1, 2, 3, even 4 effectively registers in such a cost-effective way, the return, we certainly don't have an expectation to look at the books for our clients, but thus far, people seem to be quite content with the results.
Sure. You illustrated that really well. I could, that kind of return, it becomes pretty obvious very quickly. So cool. So Martin, where can I use a Grasshopper Kiosk today, and what are your plans for future growth? What does it look like over the next couple of years?
Sure. I'd love to plug our most recent addition, which is the Berkeley Patients Group. So we've known those folks for a long time at BPG. We just rolled out a kiosk. I think they had the mayor of Berkeley was there, making, I believe, one of the first purchases legally in the state of California just maybe 3 weeks ago. That machine is humming steadily as we speak. So that would be a great one to set eyes on if you're able to. What we're working on for the future is really just, we've kind of bolstered up our team and are getting ready to do a much more aggressive rollout of, as far as, quantities of machines we're trying to put out there. And we're also actively working on a couple of very interesting brand partnerships where you might see a kiosk branded specifically to a company that has the versatility and, a brand that commands enough market share where another retailer might welcome it, onto their dispensary floor just because of the, the pull that brand may bring in. So there's a few different options we have there where we're exploring just a broader branded partnership with the kiosks, and we're really excited for that.
I would think that'd be a huge opportunity because there are some brands out there that are well developed, and you could come in as as a white label, I guess, for them. That would be really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not only that, it's like with if I go back to my old career, working with Bloom, we set out to sort of be the Starbucks of cannabis, and just for a million different reasons. It's a very slow process to open stores legally and compliantly. So,
right.
Very quickly we had to dash our dreams of having 1,000 locations, which may happen one day by all means, but certainly not on a timeline we were willing to live with. So with the kiosks, it's kind of created an opportunity where you can sort of brand a retail experience. It might be a little more bite-sized, but it's not far-fetched to end up having 1,000 kiosks out there. I mean, you got more dispensaries out just in the state of California alone. So having the ability to create sort of a consistent, tailored retail experience, even if it's within another person's footprint. I mean, it's almost like the Best Buy kiosks at the airport, or the little Starbucks kiosks, or not kiosks, but the mini Starbucks you'll see at certain grocery stores or chain retailers.
Right.
I think kind of playing off that, I think we kind of have an interesting opportunity in hand, and we look forward to running with it.
Absolutely. Fascinating stuff, Martin, and we're out of time. I really enjoyed this. I was hoping to let our viewers know. Could you direct them, if they wanted to learn more about Grasshopper Kiosks, where would you send them?
I would send them to, grasshopperkiosks.com. I can certainly learn more about the company there. And I believe we have all our information up.
I've been to the website. It's very informative, so I concur. Martin, it's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for the time. Could we do this again?
It'd be my pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Okay. Fantastic. We have a great Monday, and thanks so much for the time.
Very good. All right. Thank you, sir.
That's it, everyone. See you next time.